Whenever my time comes, I'm going to look back at a passport that has so many different stamps in it, and I'm not going to be worried about how much my paycheck was when I was 30 years old. I think it's important to remind ourselves that we get one shot at this life, and we don't know when our time's up. So make sure, don't let that bucket list get too long without crossing items off of it. Always keep chiseling away at that bucket list, whether that's international travel or whether that's climbing a mountain, whether that's going on your ultimate ski vacation, whatever it is. I keep adding to the bucket list and keep chiseling away at it.
Welcome to the Stokecast, where each week we bring you an inspiring athlete, adventurer, or entrepreneur and dig into their stories and strategies for balancing work, life, and adventure while having fun and making a difference. I'm Jonathan Ronzio.
And I'm Emily Holland. Thanks for joining us today.
Let's get to it. Hey, welcome back to the Stokecast. It's Jonathan Ronzio and E. Halls.
What's up?
Thanks for joining us again. I'm really excited about this episode.
Yes.
So
Tim. Sorry, I just blew up your spot.
No. Who is it?
Tim Burke.
Who's Tim Burke?
He is a friend of yours and an awesome guy. I think you have something you want to read about him.
So Tim, I'm going to read you his Instagram bio right now. Tim. It's at Tim Burke, at Tim Burke Photo, by the way. So, quit my job, sold my things, meandering the world with my motorcycle and a camera. These are the photos and stories from along the way. So, yes, Tim is a friend of mine. He is from the Boston area. I met him back here. Man, it was probably during college. I wouldn't say, I don't think it was high school. I think it was during college. But then we ended up in Colorado together, and then he went off to California, and then Washington for a bit, and he was working in aviation, and we had left Colorado around the same time. That was when I went down to South America, and since then we haven't met up all that much, but we've run into each other a couple times randomly, just up in New Hampshire actually. And
didn't you just do that this past weekend when you saw him?
Yeah.
That was random?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Totally. I was just driving up to the White Mountains with my friend Chris to go and do the presidentials, and Tim called me and was like, "Hey man, I'm back in Boston," and he was just out in Norway and Sweden and whatever. He was gone for a month and a half or two, and he called me and it's like, "Hey, I'm back around here. Just got back from Ireland. What are you doing?" I was like, "Well, I'm on my way up to New Hampshire," and he was like, "Oh, no way. I'm in Crawford Notch area right now."
God.
And he was like, "I'll meet you at the Highland Center." And then we ended up grabbing pizza together, and but yeah, and that's happened actually a couple of times. So great guy, but yeah, he basically has been traveling the world for almost 2 years with nothing but what he can strap onto his motorcycle and a broken camera.
Yeah.
And taking some incredible photos and writing stories along the way. So he is, as you'll hear me coin, maybe, I don't know, I didn't research if this was a thing still.
You can take credit for it.
Moto-Photojournalist is what I'm calling Tim.
Yeah, I think he should take that and run with it. No, I really, I loved he has a really matter-of-fact, realistic way of talking about and thinking about the adventure, photographer, wanderer lifestyle. It's really rose-colored on the outside, but he talks a lot about how he struggled with certain things, or he has that broken camera, trying to find work while you're on the road, and really just making it work. So I really enjoyed my conversation.
Yours. I enjoyed your conversation with Tim as well.
It was mine.
Yeah. So be prepared for a great episode. I mean, you're going to learn straight from Tim what it's like to try to be sustainable or not while, making a living on the road. We talk about some of his struggles trying to reconnect once he's come back from the long-term travels, trying to reconnect with places or people when you feel like you've changed so much and you've seen so much, but kind of everything feels a little bit the same. And how you have this nostalgic longing for going home and seeing people and returning to the places that you knew and loved, but how it's never the same.
Yeah, that was really impactful because I felt a small point. I mean, probably not the amount that he did. And I talk a little bit about the episode when I came back from my semester abroad. Different circumstance, but it was kind of shocking. makes you really reflect on why people should actually travel a lot more than they do.
So, hey, enjoy this episode with Tim Burke. It's a good one. Okay, Tim, what's up, man? Welcome to the Stokecast.
I'm pretty excited to be on here, Jonathan. Thanks, thanks for getting in touch with me.
Yeah, for sure, dude. I know it's always difficult to track you down, but you are back in the Northeast right now, which is exciting. It's not often you're around these parts again.
No, and you've actually been able to track me down in person for a couple times in the past few months, so good on you.
Right? Very happenstance about that. I just, you would, text me, and I'd be happening to be driving up to the White Mountains, and you'd be like, oh, I'm cruising around Crawford Notch right now. I'll meet you for a beer or whatever.
Yeah, even more coincidental. I was sitting at a gas station. I went back into New Hampshire, and I was sitting at a gas station, and a car rolls up and says, hey, are you around these parts much? And I didn't recognize it because the windows was up a little bit, and it was your buddy Chris, who
oh, no way.
And yeah, he was back up there hiking, so it was pretty funny. Yeah, people just I keep crossing paths with people. It's pretty awesome.
That's great.
Well, I think it was like a year ago, I was looking at your Instagram, unbeknownst to me, that Jonathan knew you somehow. And I was like, have you followed this guy, Tim Burke, on Instagram? His Instagram is amazing. Like, he's just traveling all over the world on his motorcycle. It's super rad. And he's like, yeah, I know that guy. So how do you guys know each other?
Oh, man. Tim, go for it.
It goes back. We had some mutual friends in common. My ex-girlfriend from college, Jonathan went to high school with. So I had met Jonathan, and we had immediately just hit it off. And with shared interests, we became friends instantly. We lost touch when I started moving around the country for work. And then my first job actually out of college was in Aspen, Colorado, and there was one bar that we frequented quite a bit, and it was called the Red Onion, and I was on a bathroom break in between some pints, and I walked downstairs, and from behind me in the bathroom, someone's like, Tim? And I turned around, it was Jonathan. So, once I washed my hands, I was able to shake his hand and ask him how we were doing. And we kicked off. We reignited the friendship in the bathroom of the Red Onion. And
a great place.
Yeah, there's no better place to respark a friendship than the bathroom of the Red Onion. And we did. Yeah, we had a blast. We were hanging out together for a year and a half. In Aspen, along with our friends Ethan and Ryan, and then my career again had me move to California, and then I went to Seattle, and we've been having some difficulty making our paths cross. Even the few times that you've been out to Washington to hike Mount Rainier, I forget what the circumstance was, but I wasn't around, so it has been really cool to cross paths with you so frequently now that I'm back in New England.
I know, dude. It's been awesome. So, I mean, regarding it being difficult to cross paths, prior to jumping on this recording, I was asking, is there anything upcoming that you want to work into the conversation or promote? And you're like, man, I don't know where I'm going to be, a few weeks from now. I never know. How has that lifestyle been?
It sounds stressful. I think it has a lot to do with personality type, but for my style of travel, it's the most stress-free way that I can go about doing my thing and falling into my element and being spontaneous. I have a really difficult time telling someone where I'll be, even when I'm on the road and going through Central America, bound for South America. I didn't know when I was going to make it to the Panama Canal exactly. And the reason is because I just wanted to keep my schedule open. If there was a particular beach in Nicaragua that I fell in love with, I wanted to hang out there for a few days. If there was a volcano that captured my attention, I wanted to hike it and photograph it. Just the past 18 months have been totally spontaneous, and that's kind of the way that I like it. And now that I'm back, I don't even know which continent I'm going to next. I do know that the addiction to travel is still in full swing, and I don't know which direction I'm going, but I know that I'm not ready to resume a normal life just yet.
Well, so let's go back to kind of when this life started for you. I want to take a peek back to, like, let's say your Facebook feed 2.5 or 3 years ago on April Fool's Day. And you know exactly what I'm talking about now. When this was before you traveling the world on your motorcycle, taking photos, writing for magazines was ever a thing. And yet on that post it was a thing. And it was like kind of your test launch of this idea into the world about a year or a year and a half before you actually did it, but you posted it on April Fool's Day. What kind of reaction did you get?
Yeah, I did. That's really funny that you brought that up. I remember that, and I remember which desk I was sitting at when I banged out that April Fool's Day joke on my phone. Little did I know that it would be predicting the future. I honestly had no intention of doing that. It was just a dream, a childhood dream, to drive around the world on a motorcycle, but it would seem so unattainable. And the status went something along the lines of, quit my job, sold everything except a few pairs of underwear and socks, and I'll be traveling the world taking photos on my motorcycle. And there were some people that, like, the encouragement, even though it was a joke, I felt guilty because deep down I knew that it wasn't really that honest. I couldn't keep it going that long. But the encouragement and support that I got from some people was incredible. And that was the catalyst to get me started thinking, like, holy smokes, maybe I can do something like this. And there are people that are going to be supportive of the decision. And then one of the last comments was from my mom.
Oh, no.
And she said, "Can you call me, please?"
Poor mom.
And yeah, I had to say, hey, I'm just joking, before either of my parents had a heart attack. So in part of that, I think the fear, it's not so much about personal safety traveling the world. I think that they were like, wait a second, you're throwing away a career to do what? And anyways, I continued to work for another year, just about. And then I started getting serious about it. For me, it starts with Google Maps. I have a strange obsession with Google Maps. I can look at it all day long. I switch between satellite view and terrain view and regular map mode, and then I'll go to street view, and you can kind of virtually explore these cities. And that really got the excitement going for, I need to see the world before my time is up. And it slowly turned into an obsession. And yeah, I just started reading forums. I started the planning process of just dipping my toes in the water to see, can this be done? And the conclusion that I came to is, I'm going to need to make some sacrifices to make this happen. And the biggest sacrifice was my career. It was my job. And it was a job that I loved. I feel like a lot of these people, maybe it's a midlife crisis. They weren't happy with their career. That wasn't the case for me. I absolutely loved the job that I had. I worked really hard to get there, but it stood in the way of me exploring the world. And I gave it up so that I could do that. I think my boss was stunned. A few of my coworkers were surprised, and then the other one said, this is perfect for you. You're doing the right thing. And right before I left, my boss said the same thing.
That's powerful that you did have to give up a job that you loved.
Yeah, I kind of envisioned I flipped my desk over and gave the middle finger to everyone and then drove off on my motorcycle into the sunset. That's what I kind of envisioned, but I'm interested.
That would be so. I wish I could tell an epic story like that. Like I drove off into the sunset, throwing up double deuces, but it wasn't like that at all. I shook my boss's hand, and after work, I worked in the aviation industry in Seattle, Washington. I was an airport operations manager. I basically oversee the safety and function of everything that happens on an airfield. And I got out of work, and the area that I worked in was pretty cool. It was surrounded by a bunch of cool restaurants and bars, and my coworkers and my boss took me out for beers and shook my hand and said good luck. So it was a really cool send off. I hit the road feeling pretty supported from the coworkers that I was leaving behind, and it's something that I do want to return to someday. I just still have some more on my plate. I got more to see.
Yeah, I mean, for so many people, that the picture is painted that way that Emily was describing, right? It's just like
it's a sitcom.
It's like change, life changes, and transformation being born out of discontent is more often the case. You get to a certain point and you're like, I can't do this anymore. I have to do something else, what I love. Whereas that, you're coming from it from an entirely different angle. It was like, I'm doing what I love, but there's also this thing that I might love even more that I've always thought about. Like that's a hard thing for many people to I guess take that leap into the unknown, into something that's different or uncomfortable when they know that they like what they have. But it's good that you said, like, it's something that you think you might go back to. It's a powerful lesson. You can always go back.
For sure. More in the fear aspect and taking that leap. The career, money, a consistent paycheck, that is, for me, it was definitely the scariest part of this whole thing. It still is. There's still a tiny little ounce of fear in my stomach that has me thinking, what if I don't find the same happiness? Has travel ruined me to the point now that I won't be able to be happy in that regular career? And then, I remind myself that that's a mentality, that's an attitude that you need to have. But for me, it was never about safety and security. I wasn't concerned about third world countries. I wasn't concerned about getting robbed or kidnapped or anything ridiculous like that. That, as once you start traveling, those fears kind of melt away. That was never occupying my mind. For me, it was leaving a career behind and emotionally dealing with the fact, what if I fail? What if I'm not good at this? What if I'm not happy on the road? I just threw it all away to do this. And once you make that leap, everything falls into place. Everything works out. It always does. It does every single time. Every continent, every new country, you have a little bit of fear and everything falls into place. And it certainly did for me when I left my career. As soon as I got started, I knew that I did the right thing.
I'm like, you're speaking my language right now. I know it's such a balance. I have this conversation a lot with my sister and my boyfriend, and he calls it golden handcuffs. I think I might have mentioned that at some point earlier in the podcast, but it's like, okay, we have really, good jobs, and while we're complaining about having good jobs, but really we're just looking at, the posters on the wall of Yosemite, like I'm looking at right now at Jonathan's house, or, places around the world, and we're just wishing that we were out exploring them. So, like, what is the balance? And am I putting in the work to just be able to do that when I'm 65, or should I do it now when I'm young? And you know what I mean? It's like that weird balance where you're like, is this the right thing? What kind of societal pressure should I listen to? And then, yeah, I need kind of a fire under my ass to make myself go do it.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the things, I don't want to belittle the importance of forward looking towards that age 65 that you just mentioned. I do think that it's important to look towards what's going to happen in 65. Am I financially preparing myself to live that life? But what helped me make the leap and not find a balance between traveling, but just completely throw everything off balance by traveling full time for me was, what if, I hope that I don't sound morbid, but it's a fact that we need to consider, is that not everyone in this world gets to live to be 65.
Right.
And it could happen to any of us. We don't know when our time is up. And that career and the 401k and the retirement, that doesn't really matter if your time is up sooner than that. So that was one of the things that I found comfort in, reminding myself that I was making the right choices. Whenever my time comes, I'm going to look back at a passport that has so many different stamps in it and I'm not going to be worried about how much my paycheck was when I was 30 years old. I think it's important to remind ourselves that we get one shot at this life and we don't know when our time's up. So make sure, don't let that bucket list get too long without crossing items off of it. Always keep chiseling away at that bucket list, whether that's international travel or whether that's climbing a mountain, whether that's going on your ultimate ski vacation, whatever it is. I keep adding to the bucket list and keep chiseling away at it.
Yeah, I don't know if there are many truer examples of the ethos of putting your dreams out there, of saying it, of announcing it, and you know, that being the catalyst to make it a real thing, than that post you wrote, and then the year later, the transition into that being your life.
Yeah, that was really funny, that April Fool's Day joke. I've never made a joke that became reality. That was the one and only time.
Well, but you know, when you wrote that, it wasn't like it was a dream and it was far off for sure, but let's take a look at like the state of your life at that point. You know, you were working the aviation job, but you were also riding your motorcycle around the country and even up to the tip of the Arctic Circle or the Arctic Sea, like, you know, way up there in Alaska. And like you had done some of these bigger expeditions, right? So it wasn't like you just bought a motorcycle and were like, this sounds fun.
Yeah, in that sense, it wasn't that spontaneous. I had experience on the road, and it was always the trip to Alaska, to Prudhoe Bay, which is about 400 miles north of the Arctic Circle, or 300 miles. I'd have to fact check me on that. That gave me a taste of life on the road. But at the end of the day, it's still in the back of my mind that I need to get back and work for the man. I need to get back and pay taxes. I had bills to pay. There was still an element of, what's the right word? There was a little bit of rushing that was still going on because I had 10,000 miles of distance to cover before I had to be back at work. And you're right. I've driven my motorcycle all around the United States, and it was feeding that bug. And I knew that I needed to do it without thinking about a job that I had to return to. I needed to do it without a deadline. So you're absolutely right. It wasn't a spontaneous decision. I hadn't just gotten into motorcycles. The passion had been there for a while, but really sending it, that was a big deal. And I did it so that I wouldn't have a deadline. I wouldn't be operating on somebody else's schedule.
And then I think the other thing too that I would find there is like, you don't feel like you're being pulled in two different directions, or that you're like 1 foot over here, 1 foot over here. It's like two different sides of yourself. And it's hard to commit to one side fully if you feel like you're still being pulled backwards by the other one.
Yeah, you said it perfectly.
Oh, perfect.
So how did the reality compare to the dream?
He succeeded it.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, imagine that. I don't think that there's any travelers out there that won't tell you that unless something there are some people that had bad luck and they had to come home for one reason or another. I'd say 90% of the people have their expectations exceeded. Traveling leaves marks on your soul, and it changes who you are. And it certainly did that to me. I actually described a section of South America. A friend had messaged me and said, "Hey, I think that I'm going to South America with my sisters. If you can choose one spot, where would you go? We have this much time." And I said that. I said, this place left a mark on me, and I think about it all the time. And it's true about all the travels, is every country, every city leaves a mark. And every time that happens, it reminds you that you made the right choice and your expectations are being exceeded.
So what was that place in South America for you?
For me, I just made 2 posts about it on social media.
Ooh, I know what it is.
Yeah, it was the Atacama Desert. And
Nice.
To be honest, the desert hadn't excited me that much. And maybe it's because in the United States we're a little bit spoiled. We have a lot of deserts. We have Death Valley, we have the Mojave Desert, we have southern Utah. we have pretty easy access to the desert in the western part of the United States. And I had never really, while I've always thought that it was beautiful, places like Zion and this and that, I never really craved the desert. I always chose snowy mountains if I had an option. The Atacama Desert is different, though. It's so desolate. Most people haven't experienced desolation like the Atacama in their life. And then, as Jonathan, as you and I have talked about before, the night skies down there are like nothing else that exists on this earth. So my first experience, I rolled into Chile and I started working my way south, and it was during the daytime. And you see the desert meeting the ocean and the waves crashing into the cliffs, and you're thinking to yourself, all right, this is pretty cool, and it can't get better. And then the sun goes down, and you set up camp, and you look up at the sky, and that's when you realize, oh my God, this place is even better at night than it is during the daytime. The universe puts on a show. I've never seen anything like it, and I know that you've experienced that yourself before.
Yeah, that was probably definitely the most memorable period of the entire Between the Peaks expedition back in 2013 was the couple weeks that we were, driving north from Santiago up that coast and through the Atacama Desert, and then unexpectedly getting turned away from Peru at the border and being stuck in Arica, just camping on the beach, like right there in the northern deserts of Chile. It was remarkable. It was mind blowing, and like you said, it left a mark. That is one of those places.
Absolutely, and it was actually pretty cool. Arica is the first city that you come to when you cross the border from Peru. So I had come there, and I had gotten a message from you that described the spot on the beach where yourself, Ryan, and Ethan had set up camp. And it was pretty cool being down there. I found the spot. I found the downtown area that you guys said that you hung out in. I was thinking to myself, my friends were here a couple years ago, and here I am. I don't know anybody around here. I was traveling alone, and that was a pretty cool experience knowing that you guys had walked through those streets and you guys had been on that beach. And that was pretty neat. I remember that day that you messaged me, and you have to check out this spot.
It's pretty wild, man. It kind of feels like somebody else was walking in my dream.
Yeah.
Well, I want to kind of change gears now. From like just the beauty and awe of thinking about all the places that you've traveled and this like lifestyle of wandering and exploration without a deadline. And in relation to that, talk about the business of doing that. And, so now you did quit your job and sell your things and hit the world with a motorcycle and a camera, as your Instagram bio says. But for the period of time that you've been doing it, you've also had to figure out how to make some money on the road. So what's that process been like? It's
been really challenging. And I wish I could tell you right now, oh, it's easy. It's easy to do freelance work. It's easy to make money. You just need to be creative. It takes a lot of effort. There's a lot of frustration involved. For me, photography had started before I hit the road, and I have had some support from companies that have showed faith in my work by utilizing it in their brochures, and in there's one magazine in particular who's been my biggest supporter to date, Upshift Online. It's a completely free magazine, and they had purchased stories from me before about my domestic travels in the United States and then north into Canada. I did a trip, and they had said, before I left, they said, we're going to help you out. We'll purchase stories from you and purchase photography for you. So that has helped. I've kind of written my travels in these big, long chapters, and they get published in the magazine. That brings in some income. And then the rest is just hit or miss freelance work for camping companies or motorcycle companies. I make a little bit of money on selling canvas prints, not nearly enough to be sustainable, but I definitely want to show appreciation for the people who have loved the photography and they've chosen to put it in their living room walls by buying a print or a canvas from me. That brings in a lot. Where the challenge comes in is making enough to be sustainable. There's a lot of competition out there, and that's good. Competition is good. One of the issues that I've run into is the amount of people on social media who are willing to do it for free. So they could create, there's a lot of people out there making mediocre content. And when companies, you can't blame the company because they're after their bottom line. They want to save money. Why would they give me $1 when they have 1,000 people that just want the attention of being reposted? So I hope that doesn't sound cynical or negative, but that's the reality of competing on social media, is creating a product, creating digital products that are worth money. It's really challenging. And that's what I've been struggling with. I'm definitely not sustainable yet. I was hoping that I would be. And, some of that's my fault. I pick and choose my jobs based on how much fun I'm going to have doing it. So I'm not shooting weddings. I'm not shooting family portraits. I could be, and I could bring in some cash that way. There's opportunities out there. But as far as strictly motorcycle photography goes, and in being a journalist, I'm definitely offsetting the cost of my travels, but I'm not quite sustainable yet, but I'm continuing to chisel away at it. So hopefully that's a brutally honest and realistic view on the business side of it. It's really challenging, and you're going to have to work hard to do this.
Yeah, and I imagine especially like as you're continuing to being on the road and you have certain days where I'm sure you're traveling like thousands of miles or whatever it is, like you don't always have the time to like make those connections, I'm sure, and like write the emails and like, have that time to like sit down and make those partnerships while you're also on the road. Or do you have like chunks of time that you block off, before you have to travel for length of time to get to your next destination? How do you usually manage your time when you're like on the road and creating those partnerships?
I'm really bad at that, Emily. My life is dictated by what's fun and what isn't fun. And
that's good though. That's good.
Yeah, I have.
Obviously, people are attracted to you for that reason.
Yeah, I'm easily distracted, and I've allowed those distractions to kind of guide the direction of my travels. And sometimes that means sitting still for 6 days because I'm having so much fun in one spot. Sometimes that means covering 600 miles so that I can get to the next spot where I know a good friend is going to be on vacation. So I'm chasing that around. I do, when I have deadlines for magazines or for blogging assignments that I do for various companies, I do need to set aside time. And the way that I do that is by finding somewhere that I can sit down and open up my laptop and write and get work done. So that can be challenging. Jonathan, you probably know this. You've traveled South America. Emily, have you?
No, I haven't been there yet.
Okay.
Maybe next year.
Yeah, it's an incredible place. One of the biggest challenges is finding reliable Wi-Fi.
That would bring me there. Yeah.
It's a pro and a con.
It's a double-edged sword.
And a con,
yeah.
Right? Like
it certainly is. It makes you focus on life when you don't have Wi-Fi. And I've never purchased cell phone data, so I've been, for the last 18 months, I've been traveling around based on Wi-Fi. My phone only works. Social media only works. Email only works when I'm at a place that has Wi-Fi. Otherwise, I don't have contact with the rest of the world, and that's fine by me. It's been fantastic. But when you have business to take care of, it can be really challenging and it can be really frustrating.
Totally. So one of our recent guests, Sarah Heron, I saw a recent post of hers that had a caption that said, "Wander where the Wi-Fi is weak." And I loved that. It's a beautiful phrase and it evokes such emotions, but but it's certainly aspirational. And, if you make a living off of digital products and having Wi-Fi, then that's, you have to balance that very, walk the tightrope in a sense, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So is Moto-Photojournalist an actual title, or is that just like a thing that sounds good in my head?
It sounds really good, and I'm going to steal it from you. I'm totally plagiarizing that.
You can have it because you're it, right? Moto-Photojournalist, dude. That's
I owe you a beer. I'll buy you a beer. How's that sound? And then I'm going to steal it.
Only if it's Huddy Topper.
I wasn't sure if I'd heard that somewhere or if it just like knowing what you do, it just made sense and it sounded good.
I've never heard it together. I've definitely heard of moto photos. I've seen that hashtag amongst the motorcycle community. Moto-Photojournalist. I haven't heard that all put together, but I do think that it's a pretty good way of summarizing what I do. That's the reputation that I'd like to have. There are, people out there that focus on rock climbing or hiking. I'd like to think that there are plenty of people out there doing what I'm doing on motorcycles, but I like to think that combining it with high quality photography makes it unique. So Moto-Photojournalist. I like that. I'll put that in my LinkedIn.
There you go.
I like that.
Well, something I love about that, though, like you said, combining it with high quality photography. And I know that somebody recently asked you, like, what are you shooting on? And you were like, a shitty Nikon with shitty lenses or something, like broken stuff. And so I want to call attention to the fact that, like, so many people, whether it's photography or whether it's climbing or anything, like, you think you need the best, the latest, the newest, the everything, but you haven't, bought a lens since you left or something, right? Like you have what's been breaking on you along the way, and you're producing great quality.
Oh, well, I really appreciate that. I was in Ireland just a couple weeks ago, and I was with my friend Owen, and he looked at me and said, watching you take photography is the most frustrating thing I've ever had to put up with in the past year. He's like, I feel bad for you. One of my lenses is held together with electrical tape. It won't zoom in and out. My battery door broke off, so I have to hold my battery in with my pinky finger.
Oh, gosh.
And then one of the buttons is missing, so I need an extra arm is what I need to make my camera work. If I had a third arm, I could do it just fine, but I figured out a system. I actually have my battery taped in now. The camera's totally falling apart, so it's taking a little bit more creativity on my part to make things happen, especially traveling alone. And I do a lot of tripod timed shots to get pictures of myself in these locations, just so that it's not always an empty motorcycle in a beautiful spot. It's taken some creativity, and you're absolutely right. I think that we're living in a society now that people want instantaneous answers, whether it's being upset that the Wi-Fi isn't fast enough. We almost don't want to go through the steps required to get a good quality product. And if that product is photography, it's going to require some practice. It's going to require reading the manual for the camera. It's going to require you to get off your couch and take the photos. And I do work hard not to be defensive about that. I do want to help people. I want to encourage people to get out and take photos. But the first thing that people need to get their minds wrapped around is there's no camera in the world that has a magic button that's going to create good photography. It's going to take a little bit of practice to do that. And I want to encourage people to get out there and practice. Don't worry about the camera so much. It reminds me the rock climber's name who climbs without ropes.
Alex Honnold.
Alex can climb a mountain with your chalk or his chalk. It doesn't matter which chalk he uses, right? For his fingers, like it would be like asking him what type of ropes what type of rock climbing ropes should I buy to be a good climber? And it's like, let's focus on the basics of learning how to rock climb first before we focus on buying expensive gear, you know. And I try to use similar metaphors when describing photography.
Yeah, and it's also, I think I heard in a photography class I was in like a while ago, it's like the first 10,000 photos that you take are not going to be good. So just come to terms with that, be okay with it, and just get excited on the process and not like wanting a perfect photo the first time you take it.
Absolutely. Actually, I think it's not just the first 10,000. It's to this day, it's all the talented photographers that are out there. Are still taking hundreds of shots a day that the public will never see. And part of that's because not everything comes out perfect. Now, with practice, you can get pretty good at determining how to capture a high quality shot. But, you know, my advice is to go out there and take 10,000 photos in a week. Go ahead and do that. Get it out of your system. And if you continue to force yourself to practice, like anything, you're going to get better at it. You're going to start developing muscle memory that allows you to use your camera better in any environment and in any situation.
And I think, I mean, unless you dabble in photography, people have to understand that a lot of the photos that they're seeing that are blowing their minds are there's a lot of post-processing as well. And so it's not only about your baseline skills and then about knowing how to use whatever camera you have, but then also how to process that photo.
Yeah, absolutely. And I most certainly process my photos, and my goal isn't to make it look extremely HDR or make it look unworldly. My goal is to get it back to the way that I remembered it, because at the end of the day, the photos are for me. If other people around the world like them, that's really cool because I know it's inspiring people. But at the end of the day, I'm taking photos for my memories. And that's the mentality that I carry into post-processing is developing that photo so that in 20 years from now, I am going to look at a photo of the Atacama Desert or somewhere in Patagonia, and I'm going to remember exactly what it was that I felt in that moment. So yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up. There's a few different aspects to photography now, and it's learning how to use your camera, and it's also learning how to post-process, and that also takes practice. There's a lot of videos on YouTube that will help you understand different programs and different techniques for processing the photos.
So let's talk about some of the biggest adventures. I mean, like we said that you're in the Northeast now for a very short period of time, and you just got back from a whole trip around, what was it, Sweden and the Netherlands, and prior to that you did the whole Central South America thing, and prior to that all around Europe. Like give us the rundown of I guess the past 18 months in a snapshot.
All right. Well, it started in Seattle. That's where I said I quit. And
flipped your desk. No, I'm just kidding.
You flipped my desk. If I cleaned it, well, what I did is I swept everything off with my. No, I'm just kidding. I drove my motorcycle over the Canadian border. From Seattle is just a quick 1.5 hour drive, and I brought my motorcycle to Vancouver Airport, and I shipped it on an airplane. They put the motorcycle in this aluminum box and tie it down. That box gets slid into the belly of an airplane for $1,000, which I think is really reasonable, considering the cost of motorcycle rentals. For me, being over there for 6 months, it made sense for me to bring my motorcycle that was set up the way that I wanted. And yeah, a 9-hour flight later, that motorcycle shows up in London, and it takes a couple hours to clear it through customs and temporarily import it into the UK. And from there, I was on the road. I spent 6 months in just about every country in Europe. I missed some of the Far Eastern countries. I dipped down into Morocco, Africa. I went as far north as the Arctic Circle in Norway. And then I ended in Ireland. And then I went back, and initially the goal was 6 months of travel, get it out of my system, and I'll return to normal life. Well, little did I know that travel is a full-fledged addiction, and I wasn't ready to return. So I lasted about 6 days in the United States. I got back into Vancouver. I drove down into Seattle. I saw some friends, and I actually had dinner plans. I was going to meet up with a friend, and I had totally forgotten about it. I packed my bike and hit the road. And by the time he called me, I said, "Oh, I'm in Oregon. Where are you going?" I'm like, "I'm going to South America." It's like, "Are you kidding me?" Like, "No, I'm on my way." I decided that I'm going to just keep going. And I didn't stop heading south until I got to the very bottom. So went all through Central America, crossed the Panama Canal. You have to ship the motorcycle from Panama City over the Darien Gap to Colombia. There's a few different methods for doing that. I used an airplane, and from there I continued traveling south. I got to the bottom. You can't go any further. The name of the city is Ushuaia, Argentina. And then I turned around and I came up the east coast of South America, as far north as Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. And I had a little incident in Brazil. I got myself lost in the wrong neighborhood. Totally my fault. And I was confronted by armed gang members. And that's a story for a different time, but they had figured out that I had made a mistake, and I was really lucky. They sent me on my way, and you know, the short version is they called me an idiot for telling me that I was in that neighborhood. And from there I decided, well, maybe I need to start being a little bit more careful where I drive this motorcycle. And I drove back. I didn't want to, they say, you know, when you crash, you got to get back on the horse. I didn't leave Brazil just yet. I spent another 3 weeks there. I absolutely love that country. I can't wait to go back. I spent another 3 weeks having fun in Brazil. And at that time, sometimes you just have a gut feeling when it's time to move on. And I got that. I could spend a lifetime in South America, but it was time for me to move on to a new adventure. And I shipped the motorcycle back to the United States, and I lined up a deal with both a magazine and a company in Sweden called Triumph Motorcycles, and they lent me a motorcycle to drive around Sweden and Norway on and test it out. So I did that for a month, and I returned the motorcycle and just started backpacking. I bought a one-way ticket out there, so I had a month to kill before I had to be back for a wedding, and I spent it in foot, and that was pretty cool. It was the first time that I backpacked around, and there's something intimate about only having your feet to get around.
There's definitely a lot less to worry about when you got to park somewhere and all. Like, I've seen your bike, man, and you got your life strapped to that thing, and like when you have to leave that outside and you're in some of these countries, that's terrifying.
Yeah, there's definitely pros and cons to everything. You just highlighted one of the major challenges of motorcycle travel is securing your items. And I got pretty good at finding places that would either let me park in a courtyard, or it would require me to unstrap everything. And it would be, 15 minutes to get everything in the building, and the next morning would be 15 minutes to get everything back out. And when you're on foot with nothing more than your backpack, you just roll into a hostel and you're done. You're ready to, kick back and relax and enjoy the city. So there's pros and cons to everything. I wouldn't change. I'm super biased, but motorcycle's the best way to travel, I think.
Well, I guess one of the questions that I would have for you is, like, what surprised you about going into some of these communities? What kind of things did you not really expect about the people you meet or the places you've seen that really, took you aback?
It is how important it is to discover things for yourself and dismiss what media, especially on Facebook, where it's social media, where everybody's opinions are thrown around as if it's the truth. And we're fed so much false information, both on social media, but also by commercial news companies. I know that's been a big topic lately about fake news. News stations have agendas, and oftentimes you go into these countries and you realize that what you've been being fed is totally false. And one example of that is in Africa. I was in Morocco, and I was meeting people I had my iPhone in my right hand, and I'm thinking to myself, this phone is worth more than these people make in 8 months, and they're still willing to give me the shirt off their back. But if you flip through a few news stations, you read, that continent is painted with one brush, and it's just, the whole continent is just labeled as dangerous, right? And traveling through Morocco for a couple weeks taught me I need to get out and discover things myself, because my opinion was totally wrong. People treated me like I was family down there. And that's what travel's taught me, is that, human beings, we're all humans. And I know that sounds cliche, but it doesn't matter where we are or what how our political beliefs might be different. At the end of the day, 99% of humans are good people. And it was pretty refreshing.
How do you feel like that's changed you, going out and discovering for yourself and seeing these things and the experiences you've had? When you return to Boston to see friends and family, or you go to Seattle or Aspen or wherever you return to, like you go back and put on the old tennis shoes that you used to run in, that used to feel good, but now they don't so much. How has that changed you?
Yeah, I definitely have. I think that I'm definitely a more empathetic person with the places that people are coming from. One of the things that I see now that I've just been helping out an old boss this week, and I'm working with some people that are from a different country and they're struggling with the language. And before, I could never empathize with that struggle until I started traveling. I have common ground with them now. I have common ground with more people in the world than I ever thought possible. And whether that's you're from Central America or Africa or Asia, when people are out of their element, I couldn't relate before. But over I've been out of my element for the past 18 months, and it's made me a better coworker. It's made me a better friend. I'm a more empathetic and patient person with other humans, and I'm pretty happy with that result.
Nice. So speaking of being a better friend, so I think one thing that some people who maybe want to aspire to this type of lifestyle and kind of the wandering mindset is the concern of, am I going to miss things back home? Am I going to... is it going to change my relationships with the people that I care about? And so how do you balance that while you don't necessarily have like a phone that people can call you on whenever? And maybe, like you said, you needed to come back for a wedding. So like, how do you manage those relationships when you're out traveling on your own?
It hasn't been challenging for me, and technology makes it so easy. I juggle a few different WhatsApp groups that I can keep in touch with family and friends from the different cities that I've lived in over the years. I honestly don't feel like I've ever been disconnected. What's more of a challenge for me is finding people that can relate to the experiences that I've been through. And only travelers know what it's like when I say, such and such location left a mark on my soul. Someone who hasn't traveled might not know what that's like. So the biggest challenge for me wasn't keeping in touch with people, because even if I only get Wi-Fi once a day, I am still able to catch up with them on different social platforms. The biggest challenge for me was returning home and in finding some things just haven't changed. It's disappointing in some ways, and in some ways it's comfort that, things are still the same. But finding common ground with people has been the biggest challenge for me.
I can't tell you how much I relate to that. I mean, I've always felt that some of the longer extended trips that I've gone on and come back from, it's like, it kind of feels like that, that dream that you have that it's so vivid and like when you're in it, and then as soon as you wake up and it's still fresh in your mind, for whatever reason, you can kind of like visualize, you can picture it, you can feel it, but there's no way to form the words to describe what it was. It somehow just cannot be said and doesn't make sense in a way that can be communicated to somebody else. And that's how I've always felt about coming back from some of these trips and trying to talk about them and my experiences to people who haven't traveled or haven't experienced that. And that certainly is a struggle to find that common ground again and kind of feel like you're not just bonding over a longing for the past versus I guess motivating each other forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have to be conscientious of that. I mean, for your own mental health, you need to be conscientious while you're traveling that there's going to be some struggles with coming back. There is most certainly a level of depression associated with returning to the routine. I could describe the past 18 months as a constant high, constant stimulation. Even the bad parts for me, even when my adrenaline was high for all the wrong reasons, that becomes the norm. And when all of a sudden that disappears, it leaves you feeling empty inside. And returning from travel can be really difficult. And that adds to finding that adds to the challenge of finding common ground with people, because other people can't relate, to this withdrawal essentially that you're going through. And I think it's what makes travel so addicting. It makes us want to hit the road again so quickly. Is now you have this thirst for adrenaline and adventure and new sights, people and friends every day.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly felt that just with not being around a different language. When I came back from living in Spain for a few months during college, even though it was a really structured, program that I was in, I came back, I remember sitting I was sitting in a Panera Bread with my sister, and I was like, I was having like a nervous breakdown. I was like, there's not Spanish people around me talking. I can understand everyone. This doesn't feel right. Like, I don't understand. And she couldn't understand why I was feeling so
out of place.
Yeah. But in that same moment, I mean, it took me a while to come to this conclusion of like, yeah, it's super challenging. I can't imagine too being on the road for that long, Tim, 18 months, where having no one to really understand that portion. But in that, there's something really beautiful of having that like 100% unique experience. It's so human. It's so yours that you have like such an ownership over that. So, I mean, it seems really challenging. I would imagine it is. But it's also, I think, really beautiful that you can have those moments that you actually can't explain to anyone.
Absolutely.
I just nailed it.
So, Tim, for anybody who is out there, scrolling through the feeds and looking at Google Maps and feeling that discontent, or maybe just thinking this needs to happen before it's too late, what can they learn from you based on your experience of quitting the job and selling your things and hitting the road? Like what's a good tip to make it a little smoother for somebody?
If I've said this before, and I truly mean it, if I can do it, you can do it. I do not have strong foreign language skills. I actually had none when I left. Of course, being immersed in Latin American culture, you're forced to learn pretty quickly, and I still wouldn't classify them as strong. If I can get by in these cultures, if I can figure out how to keep myself, generally speaking, out of trouble, you most certainly can. The scariest part is taking that leap. It's leaving your comfort zone. And as I mentioned earlier, once you're on the road, everything else is going to fall in place. It always does. You'll figure it out. You're a smart person. If you're thinking about doing it, you've already started the process. And keep it going, keep it alive, and you're not going to regret it. I certainly haven't.
Man, I remember you calling me vividly. I remember this phone call, and it was before you actually made the move, and you were like, dude, so I think I might, point my motorcycle south and do the whole Central and South America thing. This was like, before you committed to going to Europe first. You were like, but I don't speak Spanish. You're like, dude, what do I have to do? Should I be worried? Like, picking my brain about our time down there. But I was commending you and feeling both jealous and proud and inspired that you were just ready and gung-ho to go do it.
Yeah, sometimes you just need to send it and figure it out once you get down there. No, I don't want to encourage anybody to go in completely blind as to, there's definitely some research and preparation involved in it. But worrying about the details is totally unnecessary, because the details will fall into place. Again, I'm going to repeat myself. If I can do it, anybody can do it. And it's going to change your life for the better. I guarantee it.
So what is, I know you said you generally don't have like the next couple weeks planned, and you might not necessarily know what your next trip is, but what is your vision for this? What are you growing for yourself in this quest? What's your ideal outcome, I guess, of this pursuit?
The ideal outcome was to inspire people to get off the couch. And I get feedback on that just about every day. It's some of the coolest messages that I get in my Instagram inbox, whether it's, I went out and I learned to drive a motorcycle, or, hey, I hiked that mountain that I've been looking at. There's somebody in Seattle that was 55 years old, and they've been looking at Mount Rainier for 55 years. And my Instagram feed is motorcycle related. It doesn't have to do with mountaineering. But somehow the travels have motivated people to get off their couch and pursue their dreams. And I know it's vague, and I'm not giving specifics about what the future holds, but the goal is to continue to keep doing that wherever it is, whether that's in Southeast Asia or Africa or Russia. No matter where it is, the goal for me, what I'm focused on, is continuing to tell a story that motivates people, that we get one shot at this, and you better make it worth it.
Well, so Tim, that brings us to our last question, which is something we try to ask all of our guests, but just simply, what does Stoke mean to you?
Stoke is that feeling in your stomach. It's more than excitement. It's adrenaline that's coursing through your veins. And there's usually a little bit of fear involved in it for me when I'm stoked about something. There's usually a little bit of fear involved. A little bit of unknown of what's going to happen. And, something good's going to happen, but you don't know exactly what it is. And that's what Stoke is for me. It's an excitement about the unknown.
Awesome.
I dig that. Good answer, man. So, where can people follow your adventures? Obviously, you're on Instagram. What's your handle?
It's my name with the word photo at the end. So it's just Tim Burke Photo. And, maybe I'll be changing that tonight to Moto-Photojournalist. Perhaps Blue Ribbon Drinking Extraordinaire. Who knows?
There you go. Add a line.
Yeah, no, it's Tim Burke Photo. And if you do a Google search of that, it'll bring up my Facebook photography page. It'll bring up Instagram. That's mostly the only platforms that I really focus on. And then you have a
website, though, where you sell prints, you said?
I don't actually. I'm really lagging behind that. I am working. I'm working towards figuring out how to have a website and automatic fulfillment for photo orders. So I will update my social feeds when I cross that bridge. But for now, it's a pretty informal system of reaching out to me on social media for any commercial requests or orders.
Awesome. Well, if you are listening right now, definitely follow Tim. He's pretty rad on social. He tells incredible stories full of insight, inspiration, and humor. And I mean, if you like looking at a motorcycle and an illuminated galaxy and flowing lava off a volcano, along with, not that I'm thinking of one specific photo or anything, but along with many others, yeah, definitely worth it. So, Tim, really appreciate you taking the time tonight. I know you have a pretty packed schedule generally when you're back in these parts, trying to catch up with everybody. So, so hopefully I do see you again before you take off.
Yeah, absolutely. It was really cool catching up with you guys, and I'm sure our paths will cross. They always do.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Tim.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, talk to you guys later.
So what unknown are you going to venture into after hearing Tim's story and knowing that if he can do it, you can do it? What story are you going to tell that is going to motivate somebody else?
Yeah, I have nothing to add to this because I'm not motivational, but I think he's great. You should follow him.
Come on. I think that... What if somebody out there wants to start a podcast and they're like, man, I love that Emily has started a podcast. Like, they're looking for you to motivate them.
Here's what you got to do. Just give up a lot of your free time, and if you want to do it bad enough, you will do it, and you'll make time to plan out all the logistics, do all the stuff that Jonathan does that I don't know how to do, and you'll figure it out. But
dive in, figure it out.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I meant to say is just dive in and figure it out.
No, you know what? So I was actually at the Forbes 30 Under 30 event the past couple days.
Yeah, you were.
And one of the stages that I hung out at and was able to see was Adam Rippon, who is a Olympic medalist figure skater.
Yep.
And also Esther, I think her name, if I'm pronouncing that right, Esther Povitsky, who her show is Alone Together. I don't know if you've heard of that or watched that, but she's a comedian.
Okay.
And the two of them were just on stage talking, and one of the questions that came up was kind of like, how did they find it within themselves to get past some of the obstacles and find their success, and to work really hard at whatever it was, whether it was Esther going to the comedy store even when they told her they weren't going to hire her, and she just kept showing up, or Adam when he didn't make the Olympic team and just kept trying really, really hard and ended up making it, and the answer for both of them was just don't be lazy. They were just like, the majority of people in the world are just lazy. And if you're just not, then you will more than likely get what you want or get closer to where you want to be if you just aren't lazy and you do the work.
I know, but it's so, and you and I are both kind of like intrinsically motivated. So it's so hard to hear someone complain about their life when I'm like, but I see all these things that you could do to make it better. Why aren't you doing those things? And you keep giving them recommendations. And it's like, why don't you just get out of your own way and just do the things? Make a list, make a vision board if you want. I'm a big fan of whiteboards, as good listeners know.
Have you heard that before, that Emily likes whiteboards?
I do, but I love that goal setting mindset. I love the steps need to be taken. I just don't understand when people are like, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do this. And I know I'm preaching to you and you hear all the things that I complain about. But at the end of the day, what are you gonna look back and be like, oh, well, I'm glad I, gave up that opportunity because that really benefited me overall, even though I thought I'd be happier doing this. Or I just can't get behind people being, it really is lazy, isn't it? That's really the word.
That's what it is.
But it's how do you get beyond that?
Have you heard the term asshole?
Asshole?
Yeah.
No, but I'm very intrigued.
So apparently that's when somebody asks you for advice.
It doesn't want it.
Well, no, they ask for advice, and then you give it to them, and then they don't take it. They don't do it. And they ask you the same thing over and over that often has to do with a relationship or a job that they're unhappy about.
Are you trying to tell me something right now?
No, because you take advice, right? Like intrinsic motivation. So. There's a difference between complaining and not acting versus complaining and answering your own questions while you're complaining. Like you vent and act. Yeah. Whereas I think a lot of people will ask for advice or ask for help. They'll hear the answers, but they won't take action on it. Yeah.
But it's like that venting to certain people is like cathartic in its own way. It's almost like a therapeutic thing where like they need to get it off their chest. And that's the problem to them. They don't see the problem as what they're actually asking you. They just need to like complain and complain and complain. Honestly, get those people out because they are negative and they should not be in our lives. Get those out of there. I don't want them in there.
No, yeah. You got to surround yourself with people who are supporting the track that you want to be on. Yeah. Rather than detracting.
Seriously. No more ask holes.
No.
Ask
because, I mean, at the end of the day, it is what Tim said. I mean, it's the reason that he took that leap and quit his job and started meandering the world with his motorcycle and a camera is because he was thinking to the end and saying, we've got one shot and I don't want to be, on my deathbed looking back and being like, I really wish I did that thing. Even though he was really happy with his job at the airport. Yeah. And thought, maybe I could always come back and do this, right? I like this and maybe that's what I want to do eventually someday. Yeah. But that's what I like about that story too, is that he wasn't leaving a job out of discontent. He was leaving a job out of
just curiosity. Something more, yeah. And I think that so often it's the problem is like it's leaving the comfortable, it's leaving the thing that we've been taught as like children of a capitalistic society that we should go towards, which is money, and not the exploration of the world. And all of us, you and I both have this like intrinsic need to find new places and do new things. And I think that's in all humans, and we just have to tap into it a little bit more. And Tim is obviously a good example of that.
Definitely. So yeah, for sure, follow Tim. Great guy. His stories are always so entertaining. If you follow his Insta stories or also find him on Snapchat, he's even more ridiculous over there. And then his photos are just amazing too. Most of them have motorcycles in them, so if you're into that, definitely check it out. But I don't have a motorcycle, but I love seeing what he's doing, and I love seeing the bike under the stars and all of that. So check it out. And of course, you can find the show notes at thestokecast.com. In addition to all the past episodes, go and check them out. If you've had a favorite, shoot us a message on Instagram. Let us know what it's been. Let us know what you learned. Let us know what you're learning and would like to hear more of. Yeah. We're always happy to have a chat. We love seeing you guys sharing in your stories and tagging us, writing reviews on iTunes. It all is amazing, and we really appreciate having you along this journey. This motorcycle ride of ours.
Oh my god!
Did I get too cheesy?
No, but I was just about to get cheesy and be like, I love all of you guys, but is that too much? I think it might be.
No, I don't think so. Okay. I think there's not enough love in the universe.
I love all you guys, you Stokecast people. I like you a lot and maybe love you. So keep listening, and I'll continue to love you unconditionally. And that's hard for me. Keep sharing the Stoke. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm Emily Holland.
And I'm Jonathan Ronzio. We'll catch you next week with another episode of the Stokecast.